Okay.
Carla, we have begun the recording. We've opened the webinar and we're right at the start time. So the floor is yours.
Okay, Russ, thank you so much and welcome everyone. This is the FGDLA's Government Learning and Technology Symposium Series. I'm Carla Lane. I'm FGDLA's Vice President for the Higher Education Sector and the moderator for today's workshop. FGDLA is a nonprofit professional association formed to promote the development and the application of distance learning in the federal government. We actively foster collaboration and understanding among those involved in leveraging technology and instructional media to support the education and the training needs of the federal government. Our membership is derived primarily from individuals employed by the agencies within the federal government. We invite you to join with us in this exciting field. You'll find membership forms at fgdla.us. For upcoming events, we have one that's very special. So on December 6th, FGDLA will present the awards that honor excellence in training for organizations and individuals. We hope you'll join us for this special online event. And we are so proud that Zoom is a valued sponsor of FGDLA and has been instrumental in helping us present the webinars. We'd like to thank Zoom for sponsoring today's webinar. Russ, you're a former employee at Zoom. Would you like to add something to this?
Yes, I'd like to be reemployed. That would be wonderful. Carla and everyone, I'm sure that Zoom really appreciates the mission of the Federal Government Distance Learning Association. They are a great partner and sponsor and friendship we have with them. So I also echo your words and thank you to Zoom.
Thank you so much. Then we'd also like to again announce that Moodle has become a new sponsor for FGDLA. They have been so instrumental in supporting our goals. John DeFonso will be with us later on today. Maybe he'll say something at that point about Moodle. We're so happy that Moodle and Zoom are outstanding partners for FGDLA. We are so honored to have these amazing and these wonderful sponsors that are giants in the industry. We don't have many sponsors, but boy, have we got good ones. So thank you to both of you. You are the best. So for the topic of the workshop is Artificial Intelligence for Training and Education, Part 2. Our presenters are Sandra Wagner, who is the Associate Professor at the Defense Language Institute. Russ Colbert is the Vice President of FGDLA's Corporate Sector. Erica Jacobs is FGDLA's President and Instructional Specialist with the Marine Corps University. Dr. Brandy Lynn Brown is Director of the Leadership Communication Skills Center of the Marine Corps University. John DeFonso is Moodle's Government Market Director. Helen Chamberlain is FGDLA's Board Secretary and GSA's former Section 508 Program Director. Dr. Kara Agajanian is the Director of Testing and Assessments, Culture, and FAO Programs for the Defense Language and National Security Education Office. That's quite a group, and it's exceptional talent. I wanted to just go over very briefly the housekeeping terms and the items about the AI workshop. FGDLA will provide a certificate, badge, and letter for your HR folder. To qualify, you must attend parts 1 and 2 of the workshop, either live or by recording. Log-ons and log-offs will be tracked. You can access, if this is the first time that you've come and you missed section 1, you can access it on our website, fgdla.us, under webinars. Once the sessions are over, hours will be tabulated and the certificate, badge, and the letter will be sent to you. So if there are any questions about that, there's my AOL address, no laughing of AOL. So you can call me or email me, or I guess just email me, and I can work with you. Sandy, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Carla. Welcome again, everybody. And we're going to proceed with our webinar, Artificial Intelligence in Action. And you can see I have a little wand there. For me, it's kind of where the magic happens, although there's a lot of magic happening on the development end, but this is where we can actually utilize the benefits. And I will say benefits because we all know there's issues there that we deal with, but there's certainly many benefits that we can all capitalize on. So thank you for that. And I'd like to introduce you to our esteemed panel, as Carla has already introduced everybody. But just to, this is our group of panelists, so you can see their faces and you'll see them again as they present. Next slide. And our agenda, we're going to be talking about AI and Moodle. John DeFonso will lead us off, and then I'm going to just do a little recap of part one, because there have been some new some changes, some things that have happened specifically with policy, and then we'll look at AI in action, get some more expert input, and then future forward, looking at what the DoD community is doing now to harness the power of technology, specifically artificial intelligence. So thank you. And with that, I turn it over to John DeFonso. Is John here, Russ?
John is here.
Yeah, Erica.
Sandy. Yes,
Yeah.
he's here. He's here.
Okay.
John?
Yeah, that's okay. We're flexible. Okay, John. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. I came in a little sideways, a little technical difficulty, so I'm
That's
glad
okay.
jumping in right on time. But thank you very much. Happy to get started here. So is it Sandy? You'll be flipping the slides for me. Is that correct?
Erica will be.
Erica, okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And hello, everyone. It's great to be here and great to be speaking on behalf of Moodle US on AI in the LMS platform, our LMS platform, Moodle, specifically for the government. The platform that is commonly used there is Moodle Workplace. But I'm really grateful to be able to speak on behalf of our organization about AI, which is an incredibly important topic for our organization, for the industry itself. And what we see is some of the important trends and requirements that we're seeing sort of evolve out of this space around AI. So if you want to flip the slide, just for those that are not familiar with Moodle, we are the services, Moodle US is a services entity, division of Moodle HQ. We provide, all the cloud hosting and support and deployments of Moodle in a variety of different ways for, at least specifically for my responsibility within the federal DoD space. You can flip the slide. So I'm only going to be speaking here for a couple of minutes, but I want, at least the panel to know and the attendees to know that some of the points that I'm going to be sharing with you today are not coming just from me. They're really coming from a poll of all sorts of folks across the Moodle, our organization and the Moodle community as a whole. This happens to be a very active discussion as part of our roadmap, as part of our research lab. And so I'm more or less like a mouthpiece for sharing some of the sort of the trends and some of the points that we're seeing surfacing as it relates to AI. AI experiences that are actually available today within Moodle and those that are being developed and in some cases developed and pushed by some of our larger DoD clients. So we see AI and Moodle being applied in a specific set of key areas. The one that we see probably garnering the most attention is sort of that whole, if you're all familiar with an LMS sort of providing the users with more or less like that Netflix, Amazon experience, where it really has a powerful search and recommendation engine behind it. One of the things that's interesting about search and recommendation in an LMS is that it really requires a lot of data to be going through that system to learn and to adapt, to be able to become a useful search and recommendation component within the learning platform. And that's something, again, that is top of mind and is one of the very key topics of interest for our developers and for specific customers of ours, specifically in the Department of Defense, who are really trying to push the innovation and help us support and push the innovation of AI, specifically around this key area for the LMS. We did find that predictive learning analytics is another key area of application for AI in the learning platform. Fortunately, we have a partner and a very popular application that is deeply integrated with Moodle called IntelliBoard. IntelliBoard is a recognized certified integrated partner of Moodle, and it is currently being used in some of our major DoD implementations as the main system for producing advanced learning analytics, reporting, and predictive learning analytics around, anything that is happening within Moodle. So, reach out to me if you'd like to learn a little bit more about how that behaves within Moodle. But fortunately, that is something that is currently active as it relates to AI and learning analytics, and is constantly, we view AI is not really like a state. It's more like something that's constantly evolving. So that is definitely another key area that we see within the system. Video content translation, we have found that AI is going to reduce a ton of cost and time as it relates to translating video content within the system. Content authoring itself, the ability for AI to create lessons, quizzes, image topics, discussion topics, be able to assign skills and competencies. These are all things that you can somewhat see in the system today, but that AI is going to be constantly evolving within our system, specifically around content authoring. There are also a number of third-party tools out there that do a great job of leveraging AI for creating content that can be used within an LMS like Moodle itself. Things like Thinkific and I forget the name of the other one. I think it was called like Easy AI or something. But there are a number of AI tools we're seeing kind of arising throughout the industry that are really helping in and along the lines of content authoring, which again is a major lift and a major activity within Moodle that we see AI really helping with. So contextualized help is also something that we see as a major application area within the LMS, being able to present specific helpful information to users when they come into the system, much like we see in a lot of common systems that we all use today. Grading, assessment, automatic grading, some of that already exists within Moodle. But again, some of this is also evolving as well, if you want to switch to the next slide. So we did take a poll. Again, this is something that is very actively being discussed across our entire community of internal and external users. We found that there were sort of 7 major areas where we see AI improving the experience within Moodle. The top one kind of came as a surprise to me. I thought it would have been number 2, but the ability to generate quiz questions based on given content, this was definitely one of the most popular ones. Again, the recommended engine, the ability to show the next course based on somebody completing something, and some AI generating some sort of like recommendation to suggest another course for the learner's learning journey. Feedback whenever students give answers that could help with some personalized learning. We thought another area that would be incredibly helpful is for AI to help a lot with Moodle's help experiences by way of a chatbot. I also think that would be an incredibly useful AI experience within the system. Plugins. Moodle's all about the ability to develop and contribute plugins to the system, and a trained bot to help regular people that don't have computer science degrees to build plugins for Moodle. Was another area that surfaced in our poll as something that'd be useful. Enrollment, AI enrollment. I also agree with this one being a top priority. Just being able to enroll students into a variety of different areas and within the LMS based on some of the different things they're contributing or applying within the course. Moodle's API to help students' individual AI work better, right? So these, in summary, are just some of the major areas that we saw that the LMS can improve upon as it relates to AI. Next slide, please. There are some AI contributions today in the form of a plugin. So if anyone's using Moodle, I encourage you to go out. If you're using Moodle with us, you'd have to come to our support and submit a ticket to install one of these plugins. If you're using Moodle on your own, there's the opportunity to go out to the OpenAI chat and experiment. I would suggest experimenting with in a staging or a testing environment one of these plugins, but there is an AI plugin that exists today called OpenAI Chat. So this kind of further proves that this is an area of very big interest to us. Next slide, please. And then in summary, we felt like there were some important considerations and recommendations as it relates to using AI within an LMS like Moodle. Administratively, no one likes a heavy burden on administrative tasks. So AI, we see continuing to evolve to remove a lot of the manual hassle of administering Moodle, and that ultimately will turn to be a very favorable experience within the system as AI continues to remove some of that drudgery, as noted here. AI capabilities added to Moodle to be transparent, so users always know when it's being used. That is certainly a recommendation that surfaced across our community. I think users generally, when they're in a system like an LMS, they want to know when AI is being used, either with an assessment or within a learning experience. So that was a very strong recommendation that came out of our community. A set of human eyes is always needed to always check what's going on. Moodle should always provide policies, guidelines, and disclaimers when applying AI in courses, that all stakeholders will be guided accordingly. That was something I also think is a great suggestion. Leveraging third-party AI engines. That's one thing about Moodle that makes it so powerful, is that Moodle in many ways is like it's like a plug strip. All these different things can connect to it. And third-party AI platforms or applications are no different. So that was something that was also came through as a suggestion. Without ways to adequately assess learning and to guarantee the learning track in place is the student's own. I'm trying to understand this. I think this is what this is basically trying to say, is that this is something that I just think that it's just always trying to take caution to the sense of when using AI with students, so that students always know the impact of how AI is being applied within the context of an online learning environment. And then finally, the final takeaway in recommendation was just always making sure that AI is future-proof as it evolves, as it relates to being used within the LMS system. And that's it for me. Again, I want to thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of Moodle and AI being used in Moodle. And take it away.
Yeah, thank you,
Sandy,
John.
let me ask a question of John before he leaves us. This was a question that came up in another area, and somebody asked about it, and it was about all LMSs, not just Moodle. But
Sure.
the question was this: because of large language models and the necessity of feeding them with information, is there a guarantee, and I'm sure there is, that Moodle is not putting any content put in by your clients into a large language model?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, Kyle, how to answer that question. But I'm happy to take that one offline if need be. If you wouldn't mind sharing that question to me, and I can get a broader response from our organization to that question. I just feel a little more comfortable getting a little more eyes and ears on that one.
Okay. All right. Thanks, John. Good to have you here. Thanks for being here today.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, John. And one other thing, because when you got to the last slide, it was a question I was thinking of. When you're talking about all these third-party applications and plugins, and I think you're highlighting something really important here, that you're going to the initial developers, so to speak, and everybody keeps on improving, which is something I'm going to address shortly. But and I think that the bullet you were talking about really goes back to a set of human eyes is needed, and that we're really using it so that it's benefiting learning but not replacing the student output. and
100%.
what we're training people for. So, you know, it's very heartening to see where you're headed with this. And, you know, I think you know, a lot of it goes back to the developers and how they're incorporating it and how it impacts all other areas of the LMS. So thank you.
100%. And that's why I
Yeah.
wanted to share those recommendations and suggestions, because this isn't necessarily coming from me. Well, but I when I read this throughout and
Yeah.
engaged with these kinds of suggestions from our community, they made a lot of sense to me. So I really felt like it was important to present those findings in a panel like this, because I think that they are very important recommendations as it relates to AI. Absolutely.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to move on and just kind of, you know, do an intro to update on policy, but just to recap, because our first session touched again upon some many important topics. I came up with, you know, acronyms and terms, and there are many, and sometimes we end up talking in acronyms and terms and we're losing people anyways. We talked about the importance of AI, prompt engineering, which is the information that you get from any of the chatbots really is contingent upon what you're asking for. And the more specific you are, the more refined the responses will be. And it's probably a course I think we all need to hone in on, because, you know, you can get those responses, but with natural language processing and the abundance of information out there now, we really need to be very specific with what we're looking for. We talked about zooming in on AI with Zoom with the AI companion, which we actually practiced in one of our meetings, and it was pretty cool. Sends out a transcript of the whole meeting automatically to everyone. Jolly Holden, our own Jolly Holden, talked about AI and LMS design, and it was good to have John here too to kind of expand on that and how it's looking now in an actual LMS. And AI for gamification and graphics in current policies. So I'd like to go into acronyms and terms really quickly. Next slide, Erica, you might need to, there you go. Can you hit one more? I think I may have animated these. So there's my little word cloud that I created using an AI app. And here's something I found out. There's been some new developments. So we did say that Siri and Alexa are examples of ANI, artificial narrow intelligence, which are those programs, the initial ones, and they really are functioning from a very low level of Bloom's taxonomy. But what I found is I happen to be not so brilliant on converting inches to centimeters. And so I said, Siri, please convert 10 inches to centimeters. And not only did she convert it, but she said, and this is where I got the information, which to me was another step in the learning process. But I've asked her that 3 times hence, and she doesn't do it again. So I think she's not repetitive. Chatbots are examples of AGI. This is a question for all of you out there, and you can just, you know, type an answer in the chat. Do you feel that chatbots are examples of AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is one step above artificial narrow intelligence? So are we getting, I can open the chat up too and see that. Okay, yes. Well, yes, they are, but really from what I was reading, which was really interesting, is that we're not even there yet in the full cycle of artificial general intelligence, but they're getting there because they're able to come up with more natural language processing and speak to us as much as possible as humans would. And then my third one is that, thanks, Erica. Gen AI is experimental. However, results are always accurate. And I hope you all just say no, they're not. And we still have that need to have the human touch, so to speak, before we can, you know, actually give that information to our students or say that it's really valid and reliable. So next slide, please. Okay, so, and
Sandy,
yeah, go ahead, Les.
I like Stephen's answer there in the chat.
Okay.
Not at all, he says.
That sums it up. I had to throw that one out there because I think that's something that's kind of like the mantra. It is not always accurate. And this is, and Carla did an excellent job of recapping, and this is a recap of the recap. So I tried to highlight salient points. There may be more, but basically AI provides a natural language solution to human machine interface. Be careful. I really got into this Eliza effect, as you can see by my little robot, and hallucination, bias, and misconceptions. They exist. We need to be careful. Consider the limitations and strengths for training and education. And this was so powerful, Carla. I really, this was like a wow moment, turning AI into intelligence augmentation into IA. And you cannot assume the educator's role or replace instructors. So artificial intelligence will not do that. But it's a very helpful enhancement. That's what I like to look at it as. And I'm not going to elaborate more because you can go back and watch the video of part 1 and really, get more of the details on why AI is important. Next slide, please. So what I'd like to do is policy updates. And the reason I did it is because right after the webinar, lo and behold, President Biden comes out with a policy from the government. So I wanted to look at this real quickly. And here it is, the New York Times, CNN, but Biden issues the US's first AI executive order requiring safety assessments, civil rights guidance, research on labor market impact, and a litany of other topics. Next slide, please. And important to remember that executive orders are not laws, but they're directives that push us forward into a more deeper analysis. I looked at, for example, Department of Homeland Security now has policies. I was scrounging for some a couple months ago, and lo and behold, now they're starting to take effect and eventually lead us more into legislation and mandates that hopefully will benefit all of us because we do have a lot to deal with. So I just thought this would be enlightening in view of where we're going with our webinar. Next slide, please. These were the key aspects. There's a lot of resources. I have a whole slide there if you want to delve deeper, but it talks about creating new safety security standards, protecting consumer privacy, advancing equity and civil rights, protecting consumers overall. Next slide. Supporting workers, promoting innovation and competition. Again, we can't just say it's all bad. We have to look at how it will benefit us. Working with international partners, I guess that one is a repeat, but also Helen Chamberlain, one of our board members, will also be talking about accessibility. And that also was highlighted in the policy that we need to really look at how it's going to help all learners who have challenges. Let's talk about it that way, because it's not necessarily disabilities, although that's part of it, but there are people who do have other challenges that, AI can support some of those. So next slide, please. So this is just a review. And if you can see security, safety, I like this one, reliable, responsible, and beneficial. And that's a key. Using it responsibly, using it beneficially. My screen just froze. I don't know if you guys can hear me, but Erica, can you maybe jump
Sandy,
in there?
we can hear you. I lost you. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Yeah. So anyways, if you could go in, I cannot see. Well, let me pull the slides up. I've got them here. I apologize, everybody.
Hey, that's all right. Sandy, so your next, after your review of the key components, you went on to talk about learning more, and you provide some links for policy.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And then I'm going to have to log in and log back on. I apologize. I don't know if it's my.
No worries,
anyways, now I'd like to turn it over, Erica, actually to you and Dr. Brown. So I'll let you take it away, and I'm going to log out and log back in. And
Sandy, this is Russ. It appears your link appears good. It's just your camera has dropped off. Could you just take a look at your camera and make sure it's active?
All right, let me
and plugged in, but it looks like the camera just dropped off.
Okay, thanks, Russ. Yeah.
Of course.
Well, go ahead, Eric. I'm going to let you. I'll play around with this.
Sure. So Dr. Brandy Lynn Brown, she and I participated in I guess a panel together at the Marine Corps University through our College of Distance Education and Training virtual workshop. And I asked her to join so that she could talk a little bit about how we're looking at policy. I know Dr. Brown, the Marine Corps University just recently, I think it was October 13th or something like that, finally released a policy.
17th, yeah.
Is her audio working?
Oh.
Was
My mic is unmuted. Can you
anybody
hear
else
me?
hearing a little bit of a ting?
Yes,
I hear
Erica,
you.
I am.
Is there?
There's a little bit of an echo, but I can hear you. It was a little on the quiet side, but I think it's getting better.
Okay. Okay. I just unmuted, so I'm not sure. But it looks like it's working from my end.
It is. It just has a little bit of a ring at the end of it, but I think we're okay. Russ, tell me if it gets to be too much. If you guys on if anybody else is having a hard time hearing. But so Dr. Brown, we had some really good conversations about like what we can look at with policy. I think some important key things to keep in mind when we're talking about policy. And I also listened to you present for faculty development, and I just thought that was so interesting. So if you wouldn't mind sharing some of that stuff that that you talked about.
Sure. Can you hear me? Is it any better?
Yeah, it'll be fine, I think. Yep.
Okay. Sorry. I'll stop pressing buttons now just in case. So, as I was listening to your conversation and thinking about the main point of my faculty development session that you attended, I think, was this idea that we as instructors need to be thinking about AI literacy and developing AI literacy amongst our students, and whatever that means, whether we're teaching in residence or virtually through distance education. Like, what does that mean for our students? How do we help them develop awareness and knowledge and critical thinking about this tool, so that they can figure out when to use it, when it is, or how to use it, when it's appropriate, those sorts of things. And I think pulling into this discussion the current MCU policy that was just released, what I find helpful for an education perspective is the emphasis in this policy on student responsibility for learning, right? And maintaining student responsibility for learning, and beginning from a position of trust that students will do the right thing, and exercise academic integrity. And I think that if we start from that approach of looking at AI literacy and how we're helping students to choose when and how to use this powerful tool, as well as helping them maintain control over their own learning. I think that's a good start for us as educators for how we are going to experiment and learn and adapt to this very disruptive technology that has landed in the middle of all our fields. I hope
Yeah,
that was a
and
little bit along the lines of what you were talking about.
yeah, absolutely. And I think what drew my attention, or something that really popped out to me in the policy is the policy does say that instructors should use it, right? We shouldn't be afraid. We can't be afraid. I mean, I think we kind of covered that in our first webinar too. We talked about, we have to embrace this. But one thing, Dr. Brown, that I loved hearing you say is like, we can't take away, we have to make sure that it doesn't inhibit the creativity. Like, that's the one thing that I personally fear, that if we rely too much on it, we lose that ability to that brainstorming. We don't want to rely on it just to do our brainstorming. We need it, we got to find the right place to use it, and don't be afraid to use it. Like our faculty, they need to be eager to use it, but like you had said, find the right way. But we can't, I don't think it can be good for brainstorming, maybe at a certain level, but if we go too far, what happens when they have to have that immediate decision making? If you constantly go directly to a chat or to AI and ask them first, you learn and you develop through trial and error, right? Or that brainstorming phase, that creativity phase. And if we let it take over too much on that creative phase and like, oh, I'll build off that, you're missing that first thing. And that's the one thing that I fear and hope we don't overcome. And that's something I think as educators, we just have to keep in mind. Use it, but be aware of when and how often and where.
Absolutely. I don't think it's possible for us to understand. And I feel like I have to pause and say my background is in rhetoric and composition and teaching writing specifically. So that's my perspective and how I'm housing or framing my ideas. And I don't think we understand yet where uh, and how to use AI effectively within our writing process. I think this is very much where we have to move post process to thinking about writing as learning, not necessarily writing as assessment. Right. So, how do we use writing to promote learning, and then ask ourselves, where does AI come into that? Because right now, yes, our first blush responses to AI is like, well, okay, this is not very reliable, has these problems with hallucinations, but maybe we could start it with brainstorming. We'll start at the beginning of the process, but we may find out it actually works better somewhere else in the writing process. Because I think you're right, we run the risk of farming out a skill that we actually we need to have a human in loop at every point of this. Because I think many folks make the metaphor that AI, implementing generative AI into writing instruction is akin to calculators in math. And I think that's the wrong metaphor. That's the wrong way to think about it, because this tool is uh, much more like how we all use Google Maps and our map features now to help us get around. But we still need that tool. We need to understand how to read a map when when the power goes out or our phone's dead and we still have to get somewhere. We have to understand how to navigate still with a map. And so we may be able to use AI as this tool to help level the playing field and create access, as we were just talking about, by removing and helping people get over the hump of having accents in their writing, right? But we still need to know how to do the writing ourselves, right? We need to
Yeah.
know how to get that base layer in. I know nobody carries a paper map anymore, but it's something that actually our services have learned it's still important for everybody to be able to do.
Land nav. They still have to do land nav,
Yeah.
and those second lieutenants still have to pass land nav. And that's kind of, I guess, from the military stance, that's where I look at it too. Is when we're in the field, if we're at war, that creative mind and problem solving mind still has to be ready and ready to go. And I if we let too much of this AI take over that initial thought, I fear that we could miss that. We're missing that training piece, because that doesn't just have to happen in the field. It can happen in the classroom too. So thank you. Do you have anything else you'd like to add in this section?
I would like to, I guess the only thing I would like to add or to throw out to think about in this environment is that idea of what does it look like to write with generative AI, particularly in a distance learning environment, and that idea of how might we think about uh, writing to learn as opposed to writing to assess. And maybe that helps us find a common ground. So I'd kind of just like to leave those questions on the table.
That's great. And I think it opens it up for, I mean, any thoughts on that? If anybody wants to join in on that discussion piece. I think those are great questions.
I warned you that I would raise more questions than I answered.
I think that's great though. That's wonderful. And maybe we'll give some time to think about that. Because I think, is Sandy back, by the way? I can't tell.
No, she
Nope.
isn't. I don't know what's wrong.
Okay, I can just take it from here. I'll just go off her slides, but I know she's got a little bit further on where she's going to talk. We're going to talk a little bit more about uses. So let's see. Oh, of course, her slides are next. The power of AI in action. You know what?
Go next if you want,
Sure. I'm going to skip over hers, and we're going to move right ahead to.
or whoever's next. I don't know who's next.
No, I think it is you. Let me just make sure I didn't miss something.
Okay.
Apologize. Okay. Oh, we got some great slides in there. Okay. We had student teacher in action. All right, Helen, we're just going to move on to you and we'll come back to those other ones.
Okay.
All right, so artificial intelligence and accessibility.
Okay, I have a lot of information on my slides. As I was developing the slides, I really didn't realize there was as much information out there as there is, and it's all very good information and very new information, because there's a lot going on out there with accessibility with regards. And I do want to give kudos to the president for including accessibility in that executive order, because that always makes me smile when anybody in government includes accessibility. I was in accessibility from the beginning with Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. So it was a painful journey. And then I retired and they've picked up and moved on, which I think is great. So anyway, like I said, I have a lot of information. The slides will be available, so don't feel that you have to take a lot of notes. There's approximately 36 million working people that have some kind of a disability. And in some countries, the unemployment has reached 80% among people with disabilities who could work otherwise. A lot of people are very afraid of showing or putting down in writing that they have a disability. We call them hidden disabilities, so they don't disclose these. And a lot can happen from that, but that's obviously for another discussion. But it's with the advent of information technology and AI, it has given a wealth of information and tools for people with disabilities to use. Generative AI can help individuals find and do well in jobs that they couldn't previously hold. So that's another thing that we're finding out. One of the sites I looked at was Our Ability, which provides an AI-powered platform that uses a chatbot, which we talked about before, to assist unemployed individuals in finding, jobs and things like that. And it's a really good site if you want to go out and take a look at it. Next slide. Students with disabilities are a vulnerable population in higher education. And the emergency, with COVID and everything, when nobody could be in the same room and everybody had to wear a mask if they were in the same room, students with disabilities kind of got left behind, because all of this happened so fast and it's so hard for people to catch up that it became a stumbling block for a student population. One of the technologies that's being explored to create tools is artificial intelligence, which is what these slides are going to talk about as we're going forward. Next slide. The AI-powered systems can be opaque and difficult to understand, making it challenging to hold them accountable for their decisions and actions. We talked about this, and I believe we talked about this last time, as far as always needing human intervention to make sure that there aren't any mistakes. So it is a particular concern in higher education, where the systems are used to make important decisions like students' grades and academic progress and things like that. Thus it's paramount for AI that is frequently checked by a human intervention to verify that everything is working as it should. I believe just as any other information technology application or process that you might have out there, there always has to be a human caretaker that is there to make sure that everything is going as it should. Next slide. Next slide. So accessibility and inclusion, and AI-powered educational technology has the potential to improve access and inclusion for students with disabilities and other learning needs. And I believe someone before brought up the fact about people who have needs other than what we consider disability needs. There are all kinds of categories that fall into this. It can be something very small and physical. It can be something a little bit larger, like perhaps somebody stutters and, you know, they have a problem presenting themselves and things like that. And this is where things like this can come in, not only to help the student, but to assist the student. There's a risk that AI-based systems may be accessible to all students and may even exacerbate existing inequalities, because people will become leery of presenting themselves with any sort of preconceived disability. Next slide. In 2015 and 16, nearly 20% of undergraduate students in the United States reported having a disability. And that's the full range of disabilities. The disabilities have, you know, a scale of a range that goes from dyslexia to motor disabilities, to cognitive disabilities, to physical disabilities, to any kind of disabilities. I have a disability because, and it's a little teeny one, but I can't use my index finger to work a mouse. I have to reverse the keys on the mouse in order to be able to navigate the screen. It's a type of a disability, might be a little teeny one, but in certain situations, it could be a hindrance for me. The real percentage, as I said before, is higher, given that many students choose not to disclose that they have a disability because they're afraid that they'll be judged. I think that's a big thing that they're afraid of. The dropout rates are higher, and the graduation rates are significantly lower because they don't have the tools, they don't have the support, and they don't have the environment in order to excel, which is what we want all students to do, obviously. Educational barriers are another thing, and they can have both visible and invisible needs. Like mine, I would consider an invisible need, because if someone looked at me, they wouldn't know that my finger didn't work, you know, unless they were watching me type or something like that. Artificial intelligence is being explored to improve and create tools more accessible for learning environments. And next, I'm going to go over 3 ways that AI can help these students. Next slide. Accessibility and testing. Advanced speech synthesis technology, which are based on machine learning models, are among the more promising applications for AI. The quality of synthetic speech is becoming more natural, and it's improving constantly. If you ever have an occasion to, you know, be on the phone or listen to something that is synthesized, it has become better and better over the years, so that sometimes you actually think you're talking to a person, and they can actually program the artificial intelligent voice to pick up what you're saying if it's a simple sentence and actually come back with an answer that makes you continue the conversation with them. The educational testing service is used from Amazon to replace some human recording and audio synthesized, which is what I was just talking about. And ETS has improved the user experience for students with disabilities by reducing the turnaround time for producing alternate format materials, providing for more natural and clear text-to-speech voice for these students. And text-to-speech was a big thing when I was working for the federal government, because you could do it, but it was a very tinny mechanical voice, and a lot of times it would not hear what you were saying correctly, and it would say something different. And so, you know, over the last, I would probably say 5 years, it's improved the quality quite a lot. Next. Content descriptions. Turnaround time when producing things like this is a complex set of questions for students who are legally blind. Alt text was a big thing that we pushed. Alt text was very important when you were developing a website, when you were doing any kind of training where you had instances in the training where people needed to know what was going on the screen, and you needed that alt text so that somebody with a screen reader could go and navigate the screen. And as they were navigating the screen, the alt text would actually tell them what was on the screen other than the text, because it would read the text, but then, you know, people would put diagrams and pictures and graphs and things like that. And it was really hard for us to get people to realize they had to do this. Judy Brewer, who was with the World Wide Web Consortium for a long time now, she was very instrumental when this first came out in making sure that people knew that they had to use alt text to do these things. Another technique to automatically describe images, AI-based systems could be used to describe content. And again, I think this is probably in its infancy, and I'm sure that it will grow with time. It's kind of like audio description. If anyone is familiar with audio description, that is where a person actually describes what is going on the screen. They use this for not only videos, training videos, but they also use it in the my mind has just gone blank. When someone would go to a play or a musical, they would have someone with a special pair of earphones, and the person in the audience would have a pair of earphones, and the person, if he was legally blind, the person would be describing what was going on the stage. Same in movie theaters. They had special headphones in movie theaters that you could get that would describe what was going on the screen for you. And then it's talking about the subject matter experts who would refine the content, and depending on the quality of the description, determine whether the content should be written from scratch. And so this again is your human intervention, which is kind of the backup to making sure that AI is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Next slide. Web interactions. AI-based tools can also be used to help interactions by people who are unable to see content on the web. Tools like Apple Siri, Amazon Echo, Alexa, and all of those things, they interact through speech. And I think in one of the presenters before said that they were talking about that. There are many ways for AIs to expand to help people see, for example. A friend of mine owns a company, and they specialize in making adaptive technology for people who are blind, and it's sonar based. And so what they do is they come into a school or a conference hall, and they place little receptacles all around the area. The people who are visually impaired will have a special cane or their phone or some kind of device that they'll use that pings off these little devices that are up around the area that they're in, and it will guide them through. And they don't have to use their cane or even a guide dog, which a lot of them have anyway, but this helps them even more with moving around and figuring out where they're going, because it actually interacts with them. Students could ask the virtual assistant to read aloud the headings on a page, and it helps them and it allows them to make sense of things that are going on. My screen here is kind of, there we go. And it helps them figure out where to go on the page and not skimp content that is relevant to what they're doing. building this type of accessibility into a system that everyone uses so that it simply comes on board with every smart device, which I think they should do. Everything should just automatically come with this, because now on your cell phones and on your computers and things, you have all these things that you can do. If you want large print, if you want, if you're colorblind and you need different colors, if you want the speech to text, if you want, you know, text to speech, if you want any of that, you can do it on your phone as well as your computer these days. Next slide. These are the resources that I used. I just simply added these into the slide so that people would have places to go and they would know that this is where I got my information. As I said before, there's tons of information out there, but this is just a small, this was what I used for the previous slides. And at the end of the presentation, I do have some more websites that I reference. Next slide. This is a picture that I found in one of the articles that I was looking at. It's a young man operating an Xbox adaptive controller, which makes gaming accessible to people with broad range of disabilities, whether it's mobility or vision or cognitive. These things can help people navigate around games. And in a lot of instances, it can help them communicate with other people. Next slide. This one, I know it doesn't have anything to do with higher education, but this kind of caught my attention. Is a young man who's 12 years old. He has cerebral palsy and he's nonverbal. And his father helped him set up, and he's been trying out new technology, see if he can create tools that his son can have more independence. One experiment led him to set up Amazon Echo Show, a smart assistive device that uses AI power and its voice control capabilities. Creighton already has the speaking device that has buttons so that he can press and show people and tell people what he wants. So he set this up so his son could actually ask Echo, tell me a joke, tell me the news. He also programmed it so he could call someone on his cell phone, his grandparents and a few other people that he has for friends. But Caden himself, he did much more than that. While James and his wife were out one evening, Caden, who was home with a babysitter, took it upon himself to use his speaking device to activate the Echo, tell it to call his grandfather, and then ask to go out for a car ride, which his grandfather, of course, was happy to do. Sharing the story in a Facebook post, James said that he was proud of his son's initiative, grateful for the technology that made it possible. It was the first time since he was a toddler playing with the rattle that he was able to interact with something all by himself. He said the Echo device goes way beyond ordering groceries and looking for recipes. And I thought that was just a wonderful story. Next slide. So AI has already demonstrated the potential for improving outcomes for learners with disabilities in many other ways. It's been used to support children with ASD who have difficulty understanding emotions. And a lot of this, I think sometimes, you know, I don't know if you've seen or not, but on PBS or one of those stations, they have programs every once in a while that show the little robots that they have that actually interact with children that have autism and different types and different levels of ASD. And the little robots actually respond to the children, and they bring the children out and they make them more, you know, social and interact with other things, which I think is really great. AI has informed the development of algorithms that can help those involved in assessment identifying disabilities in students. So it helps people that have specific disabilities, and dyslexia is a big one. And that was one of the ones that was hidden a lot. And it affected students because at that point in time, the teachers didn't recognize it as a disability, and they just thought that it meant that the student wasn't doing as well as he could. And so obviously it would affect their grades and things like that. And ADHD is another one. AI embedded interventions have included error analysis to inform instruction and personalized feedback in spelling and math for students with disabilities. So all of these have helped students that have disabilities that before nobody really recognized. We didn't know what they were. We didn't know what to do with them. We just thought that the child was a slow developer or wasn't able to grasp things, which I think this to me is one of the most important parts, because it is something that has been ignored for so long, and it makes such a difference. Just this one little thing that can help students to excel, actually. Next slide.
Helen, I just want to thank you. Your information is encouraging and is really, just like you said, jam-packed full of positive information. So thank you, Helen, so much.
You're welcome. The introduction of AI in accessible education has opened new possibilities to enhance classroom and education inclusivity, which again is important. There have been several studies in teaching and learning can enable effective inclusion of students with learning impairments or disabilities. And again, the tools, and initially we had talked about assistive technology, and I had sort of made a correction. I said assistive technology is fine, but it is a tool that accessible technology uses. So accessible technology integrates with assistive technology, which provides a student with the tools and things that they can use to learn. With the application of AI-based methods, it's possible to help these students exercise more freedom and allow self-paced learning, which is important. And I think we were talking about that before. I think I saw something about independent learning. And this, I think, gives a student with a disability more freedom, and it gives them more confidence to know that they are not under pressure to perform. They have the tools to make them better, and they have the tools to help them do what they want to do to get a better education. And the application is, whoops.
Sorry.
That's okay. The application is
Helen.
Yeah,
no, I'm Sandy. I am here, so just. So
oh, okay. I think I'm almost done. So, the application.
No.
Is she trying to say something?
No, continue.
Okay. All right. It has a dual purpose, the design and development, which I think are very important, and AI-based tools to detect a student's disability, which if people in education really take the time to sit down and think about it and do some research on it, there are a lot of things that really don't take a lot of time. It's just a matter of figuring out what you have to do and presenting it to the person in such a way that they don't feel that they're being singled out, that they feel that they're part of the group and they're part of the mainstream. And also, based on the disability, apply adaptive forms of learning using AI-based learning tools and methods. And again, in my mind, this just gives them more confidence, and it makes them feel like they're included. Next
Hey,
slide.
Helen.
Yes.
Hey, I activated voice to text on my end, and you didn't know that I did that. The host of this meeting was told that someone had done it, but it kind of gives the person that has the disability power in their fingertips with their clicks. And I've been watching the text as you've been speaking, and it's near perfect. It is almost perfect. Even when there was some dialogue with you and Sandy over the phone, it just blanked it out. and allowed me to really keep track of what was going on. Even if I couldn't hear, then I could read it. It's great.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm glad. That's good to know. So on the other hand, AI also holds great promise for people with disabilities. In the future, the systems would provide error-free closed captioning, which I love, because you don't know how many times I stood up teaching a class, and of course I always had a transcriber for, you know, the closed captioning. And it was amazing, that little machine. If you did not talk succinctly, like I learned to do when dealing with people who are hard of hearing and read lips and things like that, you learn to enunciate. You'd be surprised how many I sat through that I watched the closed captioning and I could not read what it was saying because the person was mumbling or they weren't talking, you know, out specifically, and it just would not caption it. So that really makes me feel good.
So Helen, so when I used the term voice to text, I was really indicating closed captioning.
Right.
So and it's great. It really is, because I don't need a box anymore. I don't need a person anymore, and I don't need a service that I have to pay for. It is truly, like you said, amazing.
Exactly. I'm sure the captioners aren't happy, but yeah.
No, they're not. They're not.
So it also allows people to fully control their environments, not only at home, but also in the classroom and the workplace, which is a lot of what we've been talking about so far. And full-scale automation may not be practical yet, but everything's moving so fast. And some organizations already use AI to assess conformance to accessibility guidelines, which is where W3C comes in and places like that. As this use becomes more widespread, it will become more scalable and more usable. As the use continues, we'll find many other ways in which AI can be used to improve accessibility and ensure that students with disabilities have access to rich learning opportunities. Next slide. AI-based design and development is often driven by the needs and behaviors of the average user. And from that user experience, people with disabilities typically fall into a black hole because they're going to develop to the audience they know, and they're not going to develop outside that box. And this is what I fought for the whole time that I worked and had the program in the federal government. We always fought for those things. And I had a wonderful network of Section 508 coordinators for all of the federal agencies, who many of them are still there. I still see them on the list when I go look. So I'm very glad that things like that are going on. Automatic speech recognition is typically used around common speech patterns and not around speech patterns of people with speech disabilities. So it's taught to recognize someone like you or I speaking, but if someone stutters, or if someone has some other kind of a speech deformity or something like that, it won't pick it up. As a result, students who rely on that are more likely to be disadvantaged and more likely to not say anything about it because they figured that they'll be embarrassed and possibly judged and things like that. That, to me, is the biggest stigma, is finding a way in the educational system to have teachers realize that they are not dealing with one type of a student. They are dealing with many types of students. And so often I think teachers are just programmed that way. And that's the way they teach. It's kind of like if you give someone a speech, you know, that's you don't deviate from that speech, which they have to start learning how to do that. Next slide. While many of the enhancements are mainly positive, we should also remember that currently not everyone has or wants a smartphone. There are people that don't have phones. Not everybody wants to use advanced software features. Nobody has time to try and interpret content. In short, we all just want to work. Equally, technology cannot be relied upon to fix accessibility issues or to interpret content correctly all the time. Again, that's where human intervention comes in, and people need to make sure that things are being done properly. Technology and web content updates so fast that assistive technology still needs to catch up. And this has been going on forever. This has been going on since like 1999. And when that started in 1999, it was like an avalanche. And from then, everything has just been full speed ahead. Humans can do something that AI currently cannot, which is to identify the many factors that cause barriers to digital content, how this affects users daily, and what solutions could be carried forward to make content accessible in the future. And these are all things that I really, really, truly believe. And I believe it's just a matter of getting people to realize what's going on and what they need to do to provide assistance, and looking around them and kind of feeling what's going on and who's in their class and how the students might have to be taught. Because a lot of times the students will not say something themselves. If a teacher is, you know, paying attention and they're looking at their students and they're actually seeing their students, then they'll possibly pick up on things that someone else might not pick up on, and they might be little things, and it might just be a matter of fact of pulling a student aside and saying, hey, you know, are you having a problem? Do you need any assistance? I noticed that, you know, that you seem to be having a problem in this area, and do it in such a way that the student feels good about being helped and not that they're being singled out for something that is perceived as being wrong with them. Next slide.
Ellen, just one more comment from me, and I hope I'm not taking up too much time. But I love this closed captioning, the ability to empower the listener. And not only you're speaking in English today, and I'm listening in English, but I also can change what I listen to 25 different languages with one single click. So I don't have to listen in English. I can listen in Arabic. I can listen in Turkish. I can listen in French, or name it times 25. It truly is incredible.
Yeah, it is. It is. So
We once had a person on one of the sessions that we did asking for American Sign Language to be one of the languages that would be available. And we're hoping that Zoom took that back and put it to work.
I hope,
Haven't seen
Carla,
anything.
I hope it's all vendors, all technology providers. I hope they listen to that and take it back and create that for us.
well, they do have, I know, I have seen it. They do have adaptive signing on some applications, but yeah, that is still a ways away, but that is, yeah. So this list here are all the resources that I use for the information that I've just been talking about. So whenever you can get a hold of the presentation, if you want to, there are a lot of websites here that you can reference for these kinds of answers, information, whatever you need. Next.
Good resources.
Now, these next couple of slides, I just put up here because Microsoft is always in the forefront of everything. And they have a grant system that they announced earlier this year that they're looking to build tools for disabled communities. And so they're offering 5 and 10 year, you know, they're offering grants for people to come up to, I guess they have $25 million in funding. And they're looking for people to apply for these grants. Next slide. The same with the Institute of Education and Sciences. They've partnered with the National Science Foundation to encourage scientists with expertise in AI to, you know, to start working on research. They're offering research grants, new funding opportunities for these people to get research grants, which I think is great too. And that web address is at the bottom of the screen. Next slide. I know I'm taking a lot of time. This is,
You're
these
fine.
are just some resources that I use. I think this is the end of my presentation. These are just some more resources that I use that I think are very good for people who want to find more information. Next. Artificial intelligence can improve accessibility and ensure that students with disabilities have access to rich learning opportunities. Next. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you,
thanks,
Helen. I
Helen.
really appreciate it.
Erica, I am here too. So
Great.
I was going to say maybe we could let Dr. Agajanian go into Future Forward, and then I can jump back if we have time and just show some of the practical applications. Because I can run it. I have my PowerPoint here, and we can kind of do a dual. You can
Okay.
follow
Sure.
along.
Sure.
Does
So
that
you
work?
want to go
Yeah.
go ahead with okay. There we go.
Tara, are you? Oh, yep. Thank you.
Yep, go ahead and flip to
Sounds
the
good.
next slide, please. Okay. So hi, I'm Dr. Kara Agajanian from the Defense Language and National Security Education Office. So obviously my ears perked up when you were talking about the speech-to-speech translation tools. I have a love-hate relationship with those. Obviously, we are getting a lot of questions about foreign language technology because it's pervasive. Sometimes you could be pulling something out and not even realize it's a translation. So, we're getting a lot of questions in our language office about what is it? What does it do or not do? Who's using it and for what? Who needs it and why? Does it work? How do we know it's working? I could tell you some horror stories about some of the automated tools. How do we source it? And what can we be doing better? And unfortunately, a lot of times we get these questions on a Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock and they want to answer by 4, and it's a 3-day weekend, everybody's already gone. So what do you do? Next slide, please. So we came up with this idea of a DoD Language Technology Council. Okay. It's actually Language Technology Innovation Council. We've added that in there because we realize that there are so many advances in the realm of language technology. It's critical that our users understand and evaluate the benefits and risks of these new technology before investing in and fielding them. Don't jump on the first thing that comes through your door or the thing that somebody's promising you is wonderful. Okay. So we also figured out that there's no one singular language, regional expertise, and culture technology forum to synergize the efforts. There's a couple of great larger efforts, both in the research side and the folks who are actually, implementing these systems, but nothing specifically focusing on us. Even though we're tied into those two groups, we wanted to start getting everybody together. We also looked at what's going on in the intelligence community, and I realize I'm speaking in acronyms here. So IC intelligence community. So what we really wanted to do as I talked to people, is we wanted to bring together our researchers, developers, our practitioners, everybody who's touching it, because we really want to make sure that we're hearing all the voices around the table, that we're learning from each other. And so we have a way of synergizing these efforts. Next slide, please. And again, this kind of repeats a little bit of what I've said before, but what we wanted to do is make sure that we have a strategy, make sure how are we going to go about doing this? And what we figured out is it's actually several strategies here. So we have a strategy for this group, but we've also tied ourselves into the strategies of those two other groups we talked about. But also part of a strategy is letting people know that you have a strategy so that we can start sharing ideas, start sharing the innovations. We want to provide an enterprise approach to sharing promising practices so that people know what's out there and helping them to, evaluate and hopefully avoid some of the risks of the new technologies. Next slide. Okay, so we have even more questions. I'd love to say that we pulled everybody together and everything was great, but we generated more questions, which to me, that's a really good counsel. So one of the things that I keep asking is how are we providing education and training opportunities on the right tool for the right task? Because there's a lot of tools out there, but are you using the right one? Where can these concepts be injected into current distance learning initiatives, whether it's injecting some of this into the deliveries, into our LMSs, as we discussed earlier, or also are there places where there's overlap between foreign language technology and specific course curriculum, so for example, our foreign area officers are our international practitioners, and everybody always thinks of getting our linguists these tools, but they forget to think of what do the foreign area officers need for their jobs. So are these tools, we can be teaching them and making available to them? How can AI support how we develop and deliver distance learning? Again, these are all questions we're asking each other and talking about in this forum. And again, how do we build communities of learners, communities of learners and communities of practice? Next slide. Oh, I think I might have sent the wrong slides, because I do have one more slide, and that really looks at, we have an education and instructional technology expert group. And one of the things we're looking at in that group is the role of generative AI in foreign language. So we're looking at specifically how we're using it for curriculum development. How are we using it for test item development to make better, more reliable tests and really better, broader tests? How are we using it to discover really good quality target language materials? Then again, also, what are some of the limitations we're seeing, in this technology? So for example, small language groups, you need to make sure that there's a good corpora out there of materials available if you want to be using them in these. And if it's a smaller language that doesn't have a large web presence, you're going to start running into problems. There's the problem we've all seen with other things with hallucination. We find this in the language world too. Is it really translating properly what we think it's translating? Again, and also, what are some of the new ways of delivering this to everybody? So I think I managed to cover the two missing slides, and I know I did this very, very quickly, but it's been really, it's been a great forum for bringing people together, and we're already seeing some spin-offs with some of our subgroups of taking these concepts and looking at ways we're applying them. Because if this isn't something you work with daily, it is daunting, and it can be some scary concepts for some people, and they just want to shy away from it. But the bottom line is, this is in our everyday life. This is here to stay. And we have the exciting opportunity to be at the ground floor as we're developing how we're going to use it, the ethics behind it, how we're looking at innovation, and how we're making this available to people. So it's exciting times. And even though it's a big group to get our arms wrapped around for the foreign language technology community, I think it's going to, I'll quote myself on this later, I think it's going to really bear fruit and, help us, next year and the years to come. So at that point, I'm going to stop and turn it over for questions.
Okay, thank you.
I would say
Kara.
I hear a lot of, oh, sorry, Sandy. I was just saying, I hear a lot of similarity in what Dr. Brown also brought up, right? Like, there needs to be more of that discussion and sharing of these ideas. Dr. Brown said the same thing. I've got more questions than probably what I'm coming with answers. And I think that's right. Like, we probably can't have an answer when this technology is new and it's just continuing to evolve. So we just have to have these discussions and these coming together and sharing what's working. And, whether it's you're working with language or Dr. Brown talking about working with writing, I think it's finding the right places to use it. And maybe there's a little bit of trial and error in there, a lot of research.
It really is. And again,
Right.
it's getting those diverse voices around the room who are looking at it from different perspectives. That's what's going to be critical, because, your technology is only as good as the developers and how it impacts the end user and all those pieces in between.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And as a member of that Language Technology Innovation Council, from the onset, and and that's why I was really glad to have Kara here, because I think it like you said, Erica, it opens up this discussion for ideas people have, and the more we have, and I'm already seeing some of that, and it does impact DLI, for example, a lot, because AI is very beneficial for language learning in all the languages. And then we've got DLI Washington, and they're doing less commonly taught languages through contractors. So we're really able to move this forward And I wanted to open this discussion up to everyone attending here, because I'm sure you're going to have questions for Dr. Agajanian. And if you like, I can go back and show you some of the research I've done on the different types of tools that AI enhances. And I did have some applications that we're currently using at the Defense Language Institute, but I don't want to, stop the questioning here. So I'm going to turn it over to questions, and then I can jump in if there's time and show you some more examples.
I think your examples are really important. I went through your slides, Sandy, so I think we should take some time, because I think that really opens up and helps everybody understand what's currently available. And because you've done some study on it, so I think you should go ahead and do that now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and thank you for bearing with me. I don't know what happened to my Zoom, but it's just not letting me back in. So thank you. And Erica, should we dance, so to speak?
Yep, I've got your first one, Sandy. I've got your table there that has content, productivity, video, and then list of other tools there.
Okay, and my gratitude to Branka Sarek. She's our and she was a director of our oral proficiency OPI testing, and now is working with us too as an assessment specialist. And I am lucky to be able to share my office with her, so she was here to troubleshoot. So thank you, Branka. Anyway, so what I'd like to do is I found this on the internet, and I like to put things into schema. Language learning, you want to schema your brain. And these were the types of tools I found that AI is now able to enhance. So there's content tools, and they may have different names because we think of chatbots as maybe, search engines on steroids, so to speak. But basically, we're getting content. And they're doing even more. It's actually able to develop exercises and things. So we've got content. What I have highlighted in red are some examples I'm going to show you. And I had so much fun playing with these and going, oh my God, can we ever use this? You have productivity tools that let you extract and monitor data. Video, create videos without the need for cameras and microphones. And also, as I was doing this, some concerns did pop up. For example, if you're if artificial intelligence is creating your videos, then where does the human creativity come in? Where do we say, okay, AI, stop, you've inspired me, but now I need to go off on my own because you're not going to be there when I have to actually do my job. You have design and images, which has been really helpful. And these are some examples that you see on the chart. Presentations. This was very scary for me. It was scary and it was a wow moment because you can actually generate a PowerPoint presentation or Google Slides, whatever we have at our disposal. But again, there has to be a line drawn between, okay, here's a presentation you want your students to do, but then where comes the exploration of the learning where they're actually going out and seeking that information from authentic resources, for example, which we like to do, rather than having ChatGPT or not ChatGPT, like SlidesGo or Gamma actually create that for them. So again, judicious, responsible usage so that it's not interfering with the actual production that you want to see, which, well, for us, it would be language. Audio, that's pretty self-explanatory. Research is when you want to find information. Chat PDF was really a wow moment, and I'll show you an example in a minute. And then recommendation systems. So the Advanced Distributed Learning has an initiative now on artificial intelligence. They're also linked with Valencio. And I thought this was really interesting, and there's a actual article there in Science Direct. They suggest products based on browsing preferences, behaviors, which really translates into personalized learning paths for our students. So when you go into learning management systems, you can actually have adaptive release. You create a quiz, and depending on how the student actually does on the quiz, that it provides activities at their level. So this is something that's really important for cognition in language learning. And actually, if you look at just cognition in any subject area. So next slide, let's look at some content and inspiration. This is from Free Title Generator. So I put in, I'm showing you my prompt, create a title for a presentation on generative AI. And not only did it give me titles, it gave me schema, guides and how-to, questions. So maybe I like that one, exploring the benefits of generative AI. They called it listicles, which I found interesting, meaning I guess it's, create lists, 10 tips for making the most of generative AI. So you can see the expansion, and it actually gets your mind thinking about things you may not have even thought about, because it's out there, it's out on the web, it's in the algorithms, and you know that crowdsourcing is so wonderful because you always get a new perspective from somebody else that gives you more of those wow moments. Okay, next slide. More inspiration. This is actually a results comparison that I've been dying to do with chatbots. So create a catchy phrase for a presentation on the future of AI-powered language learning. This is from where? Does anybody recognize that logo? I'm hoping you'll say it's ChatGPT, OpenAI. So you can see my results. Unlocking tomorrow's fluency, revolutionizing language learning with the power of AI. And then I said, more please. It gave me one, but then I thought, this is where I was talking about the prompt engineering. I wanted more, so I said, okay, 3 more. And lo and behold, it understood me. It said, oh, okay, now I got it. I could probably ask for 10 more and I'd get 10. But to me, this was also empowering because it told me to be more succinct in my prompts. Okay, next one, even more inspiration. This one is some more catchy phrases. So what happened was when I went to Bard, and this is just to show you the comparison and the results you're getting. I think Bard is a little more sophisticated now, but you can see the same prompt, a few catchy phrases, but Bard went one step further. It gave me additional ideas. And then I went on and said, okay, give me 3 more. And it really overachieved. So you can see even the differences in the chatbots that you use. And next one more information. This is Bing Chat. Bing Chat wins the prize. Yeah, I asked it for create a catchy phrase for a presentation. And it says, how about this for your presentation? And then it expands with paragraph with more information. And then I asked for 3 more, and it not only gave me the phrase, but it gave me more information to use. So this is just to highlight the way we really need to experiment. We really need to see, and I would venture to say that next week, if I did it again, I may get more out of OpenAI, of course, going to GPT 3 and 4, because we know that just ChatGPT stops at 2019. Okay, and then the next slide are your content and image and text, excuse me, creators. So this one I did DALL-E 3, and I asked it for an image for language learning, and it gave me the first one where you're actually seeing an image. And this one, it's made by Bing Image Creator, but here we go again, going back to what John was talking about with Moodle. It's adding, it's kind of partnering with what's already out there, so we're not reinventing a wheel, but we're capitalizing on add-ons that are already there to enhance the learning management system and make it even more useful and easier for developers, for students. So here it gave me 3 different images, and it also there's one, as we get further in it shows you how to actually cite what you've done, what you've taken from using artificial intelligence. So then I went to GPT, and it can't. So you can see GPT, and it tells you I'm sorry. And but then it comes with here's an idea. The title, Language Tree of Knowledge. So if I did not have DALL-E 3 and Bing, I could go to Google Images. I could see what I could find that was out there that was copyright free. And then here's when I went to Bard. I'm still learning to create images, so I can't help you with that yet. So at least they're being honest and not, leaving us to flounder. Okay, next slide. This was a design experiment. Canva is amazing. And here's what I learned, that Canva is also responsible for about 3 image generating programs. One of them is called Magic Media. And I asked it to create I don't know if you can see it, a cartoon hunter chasing a whimsical turkey. Now, it took me 5 tries to get this. It was like, okay, I kept going, chasing a turkey, and I got a turkey, but it was like not a fun turkey. So it finally came up with 4 images, and this is the one I would use. But then what I also included here are the caveats that it gave us. Please be a good human. When using AI products, don't use them to create any harmful content. We will not allow any use of AI products that violates these terms, and Canva has an acceptable use policy. So not only is AI, Gen AI, generating useful images, but it's aware of what people may do. You know, there's all those nasties out there that want to take advantage and, you know, kind of do things that we really don't want to have involved when we're educating, and certainly for the military. So let's look at the next one. This is Canva Design. These are all the AI-powered apps that they have. I thought this was really interesting, so you can have that to explore, and there's a link. And then on the next slide, I did this with DALL-E. How should I credit DALL-E? They came up with that, and these are just, the reason I did not use the same prompt in DALL-E is because they give you 15 credits per month, and I just used up my credits. So I'm waiting for next month. But just to give you an example of the differences in the way they generate, and then the next one I'll show you the same prompt that I did with the first one, Magic Media. But this just shows you some of the things when I was trying to find things for generative AI. And you know what, this should have been animated. But the first one, basically, I was looking at constellations, and I love Orion, so I asked it to draw constellations, yellow background, include Orion, and it certainly did. You can kind of see the peripherals there. And then here is that same prompt in Adobe Firefly. And as you can see, there is a great difference, but once I said whimsical, it was cuter to me. And I always find that adults, children, doesn't matter. When you do that, they're like, oh, it's kind of a feel good. So I did the same thing. And Firefly also gave me promoting transparency in AI and, you know, qualifiers when downloading or sharing content, generated content credentials will be applied. Will note when your creation used a reference image. So it's really helping to protect and adhere to copyright and proper citations even when you're creating designs. So next slide. So this is what I was talking about with presentations. Now this I found way cool, and you know, all of a sudden it appeared in PowerPoint. I don't know if you've all noticed that, but it already has a designer in there, and it will reformat your slides. I did not want to use it. What I did was that you can see the image where it created the slides that are in the webinar PowerPoint. And what I did was, you know, I used where you can change the shapes, and so I made it into a circle rather than a square. But when I clicked on my designer, this is what I got. So, and this is a really innocent use of AI, but you can see it just does help people who may need some other design ideas. And one thing is it does not work with every slide. So you kind of have to know the caveats there. So this slide in particular, you can see all the different alignments it gave me. And then I actually went to Slides Go, and this is a presentation that I had no input on. All I did was I said, create a presentation. The first one I did in French, and I looked at it, and it's really accurate. La magie de l'IA, apprendre une langue avec fantaisie. And then I actually did it in English, enhancing language learning with AI and unleashing the power of technology. And you can see the different slides on the bottom. You can you can indicate the number of slides. I just did 8. You can change the backgrounds. There's a lot of features there, but all I did was give it a title, and it came up with this information. Is it accurate? Is it important? Some of it is, some of it may not be what I wanted, but I think if you just needed a starting point, and of course you can go in and you can modify this, but it created my whole presentation for me. So that's pretty cool with responsible use. I always like to qualify. The next one, again, in Gamma app, this is another presentation it just created for me, AI for Language Learning, Introduction to AI in Language Learning. And, I'm happy to share these if you want to contact me, but go in there and play. Again, my concern is that if it's assigned to a student, they're not going to research it enough to, and especially for language learning, a lot of times I'll take PowerPoint, put images on a slide, and individually they need to record for me. I give a question prompt for them. So it's they're creating, and they're going online and finding more information, and I'm able to evaluate their spoken English. So something cool. And then for research, this is Chat PDF. So what I did was I found a PDF, and all you do is you put it in there, and it creates chat questions, or you can write another question, and then the students actually go in and they now have to respond. So now you have an article they need, and you certainly can take critical thinking prompts and put it in there at higher level. I happen to be doing English at very high levels for translation interpretation skills development between Russian and English. And this is incredible. So a PDF, language agnostic, you find an article in any language, you put it in there, and the students have to respond in the target language. And then it becomes an ongoing, depending on how you assign it. But it really takes a lot of the work out of, coming up with those prompts. And of course, you can still come up with them, but you find your input at whatever level. We do that text typology where you want to give students that I+1 at their level and then a little above. So you're moving them more into language acquisition at higher levels. But it does give you some suggested prompts, and you don't have to use them. You can delete them, but it just provides a really helpful tool that, is something that I think all teachers can use at this level without compromising the input that you need. Next slide. Again, research. This is Google search. And the reason I put it in there is this just popped up one day 2 weeks ago after our last webinar, which is why I was talking about how this is just amazing. We could come back next week and have a lot more new things to offer. But at the bottom, you can see as soon as you do a Google search, all those little blue bars start flashing, and you're like, waiting, what are you going to give me? And this is the response I got. You can see after the blue bars stopped, and it gives you just a little bit, and then it's got a drop-down box. So you can see I just, how can artificial intelligence be used in language learning? And it says, here's a number of ways, and it's accurate. And then it also gives a qualifier about this result. The source, the overview is generated with the help of AI. It's supported by info from across the web. So it does give you, some caveats so you understand that you still need to go in there and validate it. Next slide. So I'd like to share just some examples. I queried even some of our teachers who are doing either remote teaching via Teams, which is what we use, or they're traveling to locations where it's been requested by military units for advanced language training in specific languages. So this is the first one, target language content. This is from one of our Arabic teachers, and it just shows you the different things that she did that were very beneficial. So she asked for 20 verbs from an article. She posted an article, or maybe the article of maybe ChatGPT or whatever she used, generated that, but then she asked for a translation. So there's other ways she could have used it too. She could have given this to her students to validate the Arabic. Of course, she would have done it herself. And then the third one, 5 comprehension questions on the article. Again, they're good. I mean, it's good to kind of give the students something to look for, but of course, then you can always add your own. Next slide, direct response, not an option. So what this is saying, searching for generate QR code, and I asked it if they could generate a QR code, but I'm sorry if so far they're not able to do that. I find generating QR codes are really important when you're developing an LMS because you can embed them and the students can go right to a quiz or a website, but it can't do that. But it doesn't give me a direct response, but it gives me more information to help me find what I need. And it took me to QR code generators, which was I thought that was pretty smart. So next one, sentiment analysis. I found this to be really interesting. So what I did first, this was according to an optimist, the job market outlook is positive and promising. Here are a few reasons why. And I presented this to my students as information to discuss and to add to. And then I asked it for a pessimistic point of view, and it did. It was able to identify economic instability, technological displacement. And then if you look at the next one, this was my favorite. So if we look, I asked for a recipe for chocolate chip cookies according to a depressed person. And basically what it did, it gave the recipe, and it was very caring. Certainly, I understand that baking can be a therapeutic activity for many people, even during challenging times. So it gives the recipe, but if you look in the ingredients, and I apologize for that highlighting, but I'm not really good at using highlighters in when I was creating the PowerPoint. It's not a straight line, so you'll have to forgive me for that. But if you see at number 3, in a large bowl, it says to combine everything, and it says the act of stirring can be calming and meditative. So it really, I don't know. I'm the jury's out on that one. I'm going to wait for you to comment on that. But it's pretty amazing that it can actually hone in on that and put in what a therapist might say if you're making chocolate chip cookies. And I thought it might be inspiration. If anyone is having a bad day, go home and bake chocolate chip cookies. It's therapeutic. And then slide. Target language. This is what I find very powerful for DLI, for any of branches of the service, any language training. I'm having this conversation. Je voudrais parler du climat, and it's responding to me. I don't have my accents there because I did not put in my French keyboard, but it's conversing with me in French. So and then those are just some examples. One other one that I find very powerful is we do a lot of text typology. So we'll find authentic materials. If you put that into one of the chatbots, I have had it come back with an interagency language roundtable text evaluation that's pretty accurate. And so, we're finding that those are responsible uses. Again, I will provide the caveat that the teacher has the last word, but when you can get a pretty general idea and it's accurate, now we've got something that's going to cut down on that part of our workload to help us. So that's my portion. And if you have any questions, thank you. And I hope that, feel free to borrow any of these ideas and get in contact with me. And I'm sure our panel and the FGDLA board, because that's what we're here for. Thank you. Carla, I'll turn it back to you.
Hey,
Real quick, I saw a question, or I saw a comment in the chat, if you don't mind, Carla. So April mentioned that DAF has established GPT in an IL5 environment. April, can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I was curious. I haven't heard anything about that. And for those who don't know, we're talking about an IL5 environment being more secure, right? Like the more secure environments.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. So a group.
We lost you, April. I tell you, the technology gremlins are really at it today.
Carla, I know, but you know what? We're good.
Yeah, we are. So April,
Hey.
sorry, we can't hear you. Are you back?
Curriculum. And so T that has been created in a secure environment. Our IT chief put some broad stroke risks with it. It asked what strategies could be used to win the war between Israel and Hamas. What types of things do we need to do to continue to secure the United States when it comes to information threats with China? So we're seeing that it can be a very powerful tool, albeit it is not as mature as some of the earlier versions of ChatGPT or GPT or open source AI that we have. But it's like Dr. A said, it's only as good as our developers and our end users experiences. So hopefully it will get to a place where, you know, it is growing as dynamically as other AI tools are. That's it.
Thanks, April. So April, is it in a closed network? I take it then, if it's IL5, I'm assuming, is it just for DAF?
So we haven't tested it with other service components, and I'd love to, you know, try it out to see whether or not someone else is in a closed environment, and it just works with the DAF as far as I know at this point.
That's great to hear, though. That's good. All right, thank you.
A couple of more questions there, Erica. You want to look at those? Courtney and Stephen.
Yeah, I see. So Stephen just commenting about how when you've asked for more information, it doesn't go beyond the 3. Or were there more? Oh, so Stephen, okay, you're asking if anybody knows about IL2 environment or the IL4 environment. So yeah, so Courtney was just mentioning that it's impact level IL5, impact level 5. So that's a more secure. And then Stephen's wondering, is anybody know? Because I believe Stephen, somebody else had asked if anybody knew of AI in a closed network, right, for government use, so that it probably, so it doesn't go beyond. So is there anything in the IL2 or IL4 environments? I mean, I guess it would. I am not aware right now in any closed environment. I know I'm still looking into seeing if we can get with maybe ADL, seeing if they have any knowledge of anything working towards that.
Yeah, that would be the question, is can we use the fear is putting, say, unclassified information that it's unclassified, but once you start dumping it to the AI, then the AI, it potentially educates the AI and any other AI that for anybody else who has access to that same AI. So if it's a closed AI, then we could ask it questions that and put information in it without concern of being, you know, educating the AI that someone else could also use.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's kind of related to that Moodle question that was asked earlier, and maybe that's just what it needs to be elaborated to John when we were asking it, is, you know, this information that we feed in, can it get closed in within our space? And I would imagine definitely if you're like working in an IL4 space, just the way that those spaces are created, IL4 and Poly 5, right? Because they're contained, they're inside their own container. I think that's what makes it, if I understand correctly, that's what makes it that level. But yeah, something that is dedicated just to that space, that's a really good question. Yeah, I think it's something that we need to further look into further. Maybe a future webinar that we present here.
Right. Well, Erica, if I may, you know, what resonates with me is that, you know, the cybersecurity walls that are up. I mean, I know that we're looking into using Gen AI in some of the tech programs we're developing, that we've already developed over the years. And we're running into barriers because of the cybersecurity. So maybe that's something that gets addressed within the system so that none of that information, especially if it's, you know, PII or anything like that, gets out. You know, I don't know that much about it, but that's kind of what I was thinking. If
I can jump in, there is a group on the DoD side that's looking at that right now, one of the task forces. So more to follow, but we had a very animated discussion on this very topic last week. And it also generated a lot of haves and have-nots, because what may be allowed on one organization's, you know, enclave might not be in another. So more to follow.
Well,
You know,
and that's a really good point, because I know, you know, for the Marine Corps, for example, we can't initiate meetings, we can't host meetings inside of Zoom. I can attend them, right? But there's at different levels. The Department of the Navy sets restrictions, and then the Marine Corps sets even deeper restrictions. So yes, across the DoD, there are going to be different levels of wherever comfortability exists. So that's a really good point.
You know, just to bring it up, I mean, my federal service was 15 years with the U.S. Department of Education. So we didn't have any real secrets, except that now we still have problems with FERPA, which provides a privacy for students within systems. So I'm at Capella University as an instructional designer. And so one of the things that we're not able to do, we have policies already about being able to put anything that has a student name or is student generated into AI to ask it to, come up with an answer for a discussion question or to grade a paper or to generate anything based upon student work. And so it's really something to begin to consider. I'm sure HIPAA will have the same thing for any medical facilities that are government as well. So outside of all the, the very privacy things and all the other things you're talking about, I've never even heard of IL, but okay, thank you. It was great. I needed that. All right, we've got a couple of minutes left. Any other questions? Okay, well, hearing none, let me just see if there's anything.
Does anybody have any ideas too to share? I mean, yeah, so Dr. Brown, I'm saying writing studies, other ideas of how to incorporate and use these technologies.
Hey, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, let whoever, was that you, Stephen?
Yes, it was, Brandy.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. One of the things I would love to be able to do with AI is for the AI to scan the vast amounts of U.S. defense policy or defense security policy. And so because we have, the Department of Defense publishes hundreds of regulations and policies, being able to have an AI scan and go through and ask it questions to pull out information from all that policies that are in PDF form that are sitting at the Washington Headquarters Service website would be a great help because I'm in security education, great help to pull information out and find very specific information that I would be looking for. And I'm just curious if anyone's experimented with the issues of AI, reviewing PDFs that are sitting on the web that are not behind firewalls. So they're accessible to the public. That was a question too.
Yeah.
If anyone has any experience.
I don't know. Maybe it's for the LTIC. Kara, I've got more work for us.
Cindy, that wasn't anything similar to what your PDF thing was it? Because that wasn't searching.
No, well, no, chat PDF. Actually, it does. I think if you put a prompt in there, it would generate, because I asked another question and it actually, kind of hard. I don't know how big your slides came through, if everyone could see that, but it did give me information from the article. It went into the PDF, and so maybe it's there, and it's just a matter of, again, the questioning part. Is there specific information, and it'll come back. It's certainly worth trying. I don't know. I can play with it. So, but yeah, it seems like that would work because it's just looking right at the document.
Well, we've got 1 minute left, so I think I'm going to call it a day. It's been a interesting, wonderful series of pieces of information. I think, we started out to put this together to focus exclusively on training and educations, because most of us are instructional designers or trainers or involved in those policies that have to come forward and to help us all understand where we are right now. So we'll continue doing these things. So I want to thank Sandy, Russ, Erica, Brandy, John, Helen, and Kara. The workshop was outstanding. So if any of you want to recommend to others in your organizations that they for the certification, they've only got to watch part 1 and part 2. They will need to register, otherwise we will not be able to track their logins. If you have any trouble with that, you can contact me at AOL.com. We want to thank you for joining us and being with us today. We really appreciate it, and it was great to see all of you here today.
Hey, Carla,
yeah.
Before you say conclude, I just noticed that Paula has her hand raised.
Oh, okay.
Do we have time for a question
Sure.
from Paula?
Sure, go ahead.
And she just took her hand down.
Okay. All right, moving right along. I'll use the conclude word again. So that concludes the workshop. We hope we'll see you on December 6th to honor those organizations and individuals who have contributed so much to what we all do. So that's the awards ceremony for FGDLA. And we want to thank you for being here, and happy Thanksgiving. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.